I can stream to my Roku.
Oh.
So I don't have to be like, if I'm listening to a podcast, like, like I'm trying to listen to something like in a podcast style where I'm like, I just want to listen and kind of like zone out and not necessarily like watch it.
Yeah.
I can still put it on the TV and then I can hear it and like walk around the house and like not have headphones in.
That's nice.
So that was like I watched the first Legacy call on.
Oh yeah, we missed you. It was really cool. I was in
can't
full
do
mom
this
mode. I was like,
I can't do this Sundays. So I'm like, I actually have to move clients in order to do the Tuesdays, whatever day it is going forward. I have to move clients in order to do that. But I have a prenatal class that's like sold out on Sunday afternoons. And I'm the only prenatal yoga teacher in the fucking county. And it's in person. So it's not even like I can be like, oh, we'll just like move it around. It's like, no, these people have like moved their life to be here in person. So, well, it's not in person right now. I'm not seeing anybody right now, but
it's so crazy.
We're like doing social distancing for in person.
Yeah. It's Sundays are just the worst for me. I really try and make like my biggest thing, Kelly, I'm trying to like separate like my phone and work from family time. And Sundays are family time for me. So I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that they were on Sundays, I was like, oh, but I'm like, I paid so much money for this. So I'm like, so
if we need to, Christy, we can have a watch party.
I know, because I
already have it on my schedule for the Monday morning after to watch it for the next one. So if you miss it, we'll do a watch party together.
Here we go.
I'll watch it on my big ass TV in my living room.
That's sweet.
All right. You ready, girl?
Ready.
I have to like I have to remember what the hell I'm going to say here.
It's forever. Right?
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Not Your Mama podcast. This is Kelly Bryant, creator and founder of Kelly Bryant Wellness. And I am joined today by Christi Brown, who is at Intuitively Strong. Christi, I'm going to toss it over to you to introduce yourself. Please let us know what pronouns you use. And I also like to know what emoji you identify as.
Oh, yes. So my name is Christi Brown. I identify as she, her, and my emoji would probably be like the salsa dancing girl. I just like, she is my spirit animal. I swear every time I put her up, I'm like, yeah, that's all I think in my 100%. Mind. Is like, hell yeah.
That's mine too. And I always very much struggle with, cause like I'm a white girl and there is no white brown haired girl.
Oh.
And so I'm like, well, I never want to put the like person of color and be like, I'm not a person of color. Like I can't be using the like the tan emoji. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll be the blonde emoji. So now I'm like real basic. I'm the blonde salsa dancing girl because I am not the black haired salsa dancing girl.
I love it. We love you, Kelly. We love you so much.
I'm not gonna like be emoji blackface. So I'm just gonna be the blonde salsa dancing girl. But she's my favorite by far.
She is wonderful. Oh.
Okay, so Christi, you are an intuitive eating coach. You have an awesome story. I don't do like big detailed intros because I want you to just like say it yourself. And also it makes me very uncomfortable when people read my bio and I'm like, oh my God, she sounds very important.
Right.
So tell us about yourself. How did you get into the strength world? And then how did you get into the intuitive eating world? All that jazz.
Totally. So I was a high school athlete my whole life. I was a college athlete. And so kind of that like just working out and, you know, that go hard drive attitude was always instilled within me, especially with my dad. My dad was a very big, like, go hard, only your best, 100% all the time, which, you know, was really great back then in the 80s. That's what you did. Like, that's just how you parented. You know what I mean? That's what it was. So I grew up kind of with that mentality, like always in drive, always in perfectionist mode, always in overachiever mode, always that people pleasing, like, okay, look what I did. Like, this is great. Do you see? Look. So, as I got out of college and I stopped playing sports, I'm like, oh man, I need something else to drive for. So it started with this like innocent, I just want to lose 10 pounds. I just, you know, life after sport, if you've played sports in high school or college, you know, it's just like all of a sudden you can't take that life with you. So you kind of almost I don't want to say lose your body, but you get into a different body, which is okay, but you've never been in this body before. It's a bigger body. Usually it's not as, I hate this word, but I'm going to say it, toned. But it's kind of just different. So you live in it and you're like, oh, I don't like this. So I'm like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. And I kind of went through like that 1200 calorie phase and did all the dieting and to try and get back to my, oh, but this is how I was in high school, even though it was like 10 years later. And I'm like, I don't listen to the same music I did. My hair is definitely not blonde and black anymore. Like, like the Snooki poof. And so I'm like, man, I was going through a tough time in my life and I'm like, I'm going to do a bodybuilding show. I've always wanted to do this. I've always been really attracted to things that don't go together. So I'm like, oh, girls in bodybuilding, this will be great. Back then it wasn't as like, oh, like what it is now. And not to say that's a bad thing now. It's that is actually like kind of like the trend of the body now, which we can get into later because there's always a trend with the bodies. And so I got into bodybuilding and became very obsessed with having that look all the time. And what people don't understand is that look, that stage look that you have on stage, and people pin this on their body goals board on Pinterest and everything, is that look is so unsustainable. Like you can have that look for one day and you're only supposed to have that look for one day. Like at that point, obviously I'd lost my period, which is your fifth vital sign. You know this, Kelly, working with all the people you do. And I was malnourished, I was dehydrated, but I tried to keep that look for so long. And then suddenly that became my identity. So now I had to keep this fit look or else I wasn't worth health, or else it looked like I gave up on myself. And I think people of all sorts feel this way, even if you weren't in bodybuilding, that, oh, I've lost weight and I can't gain weight because what are people going to think of me? They're going to think I gave up on myself. They're going to think I'm not worth health. Or if I'm eating a cheeseburger, they're going to freak out. So I took this on to a way unhealthy level, developed eating disorders to try and keep this body, went through one hell of a time, somehow got pregnant in between twice, which was wonderful. So happy for that. But I really didn't take care of my body. My whole goal after my kids was to lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. So I never got that really good time with them because my mind was so focused on macros and things. So I became a macro counting coach for moms who just had babies after that, and then decided that, nobody could stick to the plans, not even me. So, and it was ridiculous. So, and then that's how I just found intuitive eating, and I'm like, I have to get out of this. So
that's actually, I've never asked you, and I've always meant to ask you where because you did mention that you lost your period, like there is an unhealthy level of weight loss that you can't get pregnant. And it's I've looked into the research on this because I wrote an entire book that is yet to be published on prenatal exercise, but it is very unlikely that you're going to exercise too much to get pregnant, but it is a possibility. Like there is a certain level of intensity with exercise. Usually it's not necessarily the exercise, it's more the weight loss and the diet and the hormone changes that come as a result of the exercise. But that 100% can affect fertility. I don't want anyone who's like working out for 45 minutes 3 to 4 days a week to be like, oh my God, this is why I can't conceive. Like that is probably not why you can't conceive.
I was working out like hardcore. Like when I say hardcore, it was 2 hours a day, like of pure it was 6 days a week, like 2 hours a day. So
were you working full time at the same time?
Yep. That's when I was talking to you. I was waking up at 4:30 a.m. I would go to the gym. I would come home, get the boys ready, take them to daycare, go to my 9 to 5 job, come home, work. Baths, dinner, all that jazz. And then at that point too, I was studying for my nutrition coaching license. So I was doing that at night. And my husband at one point came to me and he's like, you have to stop. He's like, I don't even know you anymore. So, and this is, it's that go hard mentality. It's that always moving, always going. So always in drive. So that's, a whole other story, but.
Right. This is, I always say like your partner is a great litmus test for like what's up with you. Assuming that you have like a solid relationship and stuff, like
Yeah.
they're gonna, if you go to your partner and you say like, hey, this is something I really want to do, this is something I'm passionate about, and like explain your why to them,
Mhm.
they're a really good mirror of like if you're just being ridiculous
Yeah.
or if this is legit like something that is actually worth pursuing. um
Totally.
and I mean, so you were like in that bodybuilding shape like between
Oh,
kids.
yeah, I
My
had to
God.
keep that body because if I didn't, to me in my head, if I didn't lose that weight, then like, okay, so, and I know a lot of people will understand this. So when you come from, I don't come from a lean family. Like, I believe I have medium-sized privilege, small to medium-sized privilege. So I can't speak for people in bigger bodies, but I know that when you do lose weight, and you're not, everybody like looks at you, they're like, oh my gosh, like, wow, you all of a sudden become valuable. You know what I mean? You all of a sudden become like, ooh, they like me. And it's this tribe mentality in your head of, because our brains are so prehistoric of, I can't get kicked out of my tribe. I have to blend in. I have to be the best. I have to be an asset. And then that mixed with that perfectionist attitude, it's just like the self-destructive bomb of keep this look at all costs or else you won't be worth anything, you won't be loved, people won't like you anymore, they're going to think that you gave up on yourself. So to me in my head it was like a life or death situation of, if I gain weight then people, I'm going to get kicked
No
out of
one's
my
gonna
tribe
love
in that
me. Yeah.
prehistoric sense. So
Yeah. So, I mean, that actually was going to be my next question is like, you've been pretty open about the fact, like, when you moved into intuitive eat, obviously it was completely unsustainable to be in that bodybuilder shape. Like, you gain weight. That's
oh
what happened for, it doesn't happen for everybody. Some people go to intuitive eating and lose weight. Some
yeah,
people go to intuitive eating and gain weight.
yeah,
So, tell us, did
yeah.
everyone you love disown you? Do you have no friends? Did you lose your job? Are you homeless now? What happened?
Gosh, so my coach, I got a coach because, and the truth is I actually went into intuitive eating, then came out of it because I started gaining weight and I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm gaining weight. I thought it would be that intuitive eater that lost weight or that stayed the same weight or maybe gained like a couple pounds, but then it was fine. Kelly, I gained 40 pounds, like from my leanest, like, but I had to, like, that's the thing is I had to gain weight. And we have this weight gain in our heads, this weight gain stigma that's so bad. Like if you gain weight, you're not worth health. You gave up on yourself. What are you doing? You're bad. And weight gain isn't always a bad thing. So yeah, when I walked into my biggest fear, right, as I call it to my clients, immersing yourself in your tank of snakes, right? Like you're walking into your biggest fear. That is my biggest fear. Um, and I'm like, oh, I came out. Half of those snakes were fake. They were rubber. Like I was making them up in my head. And the real ones were just like, oh, get out of here. This is my tank. Like they were more scared of me than I was of them. So it was one of the things where I had to walk into it and know that I didn't die. My house didn't burn down. My husband didn't leave me. In fact, he actually was like, oh my God, you get to eat dinner with me now. Like you can go out. Like I will never, ever in my entire life forget the time we went to a sporting goods store and he's like, all right, let's go to lunch afterwards. And I had my 6-pack cooler in the car with me. And I'm like, I'll watch you eat, but I can't eat with you. And I had like tuna fish with like avocado in it and like chopped up peppers, and that was my lunch. And it was like this tiny little like container. It wasn't even like a big bowl. It was just like somebody would be like, this isn't even enough for a snack. But to me, like that was how I showed my value, was through my body, and that became my identity. And a
This
lot more people are into this than we
this
would
is
like to think.
such a difficult topic for me. I'm like very open with my people that I'm like, some people come into my programs and their goal is to lose weight. I'm not a weight loss coach.
Yeah.
I am not going to tell you you're a bad person for wanting to lose weight. I'm
Mhm.
also not going to tell you that you're a good person if you do lose weight. And
Yeah.
that's like, you mentioned privilege. Like, I have small body privilege.
Mhm.
I've never dieted a day in my life. I mean, I
Mhm.
tried to do Whole30 one time just to like see if I could do it. And the answer was no, I
Hey.
could not do it because I wasn't willing to do that
Yeah.
stuff of like, oh, let me like, plan a meal ahead of time. So
Yeah.
it's, this is totally not something that like I'm good at coaching clients on.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm so, so happy to have you here to be like,
Yeah.
I did that shit. Like, and like you came through the other side of it. And I mean, I think that I think I know what you're going to say here, but like, so you're perfect now. You never obsess about food, right? Like this is never an issue for you ever anymore at all, right?
I love this question so much, Kelly, because this is something that isn't talked about enough. So when I was in like the heat of my eating disorders and disordered relationship with food, my thought was, okay, if I can just get to this place where I love my body, then I will be okay. Like, yeah, it'll be a little hard, but and I thought that it would just go away once I loved my body. So a couple of things. You don't just walk into love. Like when people start working with me, I tell them right off the bat, I'm like, this is going to take so much time. Like it took me a solid year and a half of consistently gaining weight, of like going into this like, oh, what did I do to my body, like what happened, like you could be, and especially when I see my bodybuilder friends now that are like back in training and for shows and things like that, and I'm just like, good for you, not for me. That's not my season of life right now. Like this is where I need to be. So I have to keep reminding myself of that. But it's so important to know that like you don't just go from like self-disgust and complete body hate to self-love. Like there's steps in between. You have to go through like that curiosity phase of, okay, so why am I getting angry about the cellulite on my legs? Like everybody has that. And to neutrality of, instead of I hate my body, it's I have a body. Or instead of I hate the way my legs look, it's just, okay, I'm having a bad body image day today. And then that will eventually, like once you keep like dinging that little monster in your head, that monster won't grow and get bigger. That monster will actually stay small. So the other thing is you can't truly and honestly fully get rid of the monster. Like we've just been taught in society, Kelly, that like weight loss and thinness equals health. Like, right? Like if you talk to, like, if you polled your people and been like, what does health mean to you? Half of them are going to be like, or I'd say 90% of them going on a diet, like, working out more, things like that, which is fine to an extent. Diets were meant to be short term. Like we were not meant to make diets lifestyle plans or wellness plans. We were meant to do them short term and then get the hell off of them because they're not sustainable. You cannot do that for a long period of time. And like I tell my clients, you have to feed both your biological hunger and your mental hunger. So your biological hunger is in your stomach, right? That's like the food to nourish us. Like if we absolutely had to, Kelly, we could eat paleo, we could eat keto, and we would survive and we would be fine. We need nourishment, right? But like, would you want to live like that in this day and age? Like I tell my clients, like you could live without your phone, but would you want to? Like,
Yeah.
it's just not realistic in this day and age.
And there's excellent evidence for this, is like the fact that there are people who have like autoimmune diseases where
Yeah.
like they have to not eat certain foods. And like,
Yeah.
and of course, have to is a choice, right?
Yeah.
Like they could eat those foods and they would just have really negative effects. And like going on a diet is the same thing. It's like you could eat those things, but you're going to have negative effects of like sitting in a parking lot and eating tuna fish out of a cooler because like you
Right.
can't like function with your family.
Yes.
And so everything is a choice.
Yeah.
And I think I think I can speak for you in saying like you're not telling people that they have to do anything in particular, but just to offer the awareness that like you can live that like bodybuilder lifestyle of working out 2 hours a day and counting your macros and like eating really specifically, or you can choose to eat a little bit more intuitively and open up all of that brain space and that time for things that are more important to you. And you get to choose what your values are.
That is so true. And if your health is coming at the cost of your mental health, then that's not really health. And that's where people are getting so hung up on this black or white thinking. Like health to everybody right now is so black or white. It's like, I'm either on or I'm off. I'm either eating good or I'm eating bad. When really true health, the most sustainable health is the gray. It's in between the two. So if you're ever struggling, like I tell my clients this all the time, if you're like, I don't know what to eat, I'm having like this like freak out moment. Like, is this giving myself full permission or am I really like restricting? And I'm like, okay, so take the two extremes, right? You could eat tuna fish out of your car, like from a container, or you can go out and have this big like burger that is not going to make you feel the greatest with fries and eat the whole thing, even though you're not really hungry for the whole thing, and eat in the middle. Like, you know what I mean? You can do both. People are like, I forget that I can only have a bite. Like, I forget that that's offered to me, right? Like I
Mhm.
forget that I only need a bite of dessert. Like sometimes people are like, well, it's on my plate. I got to eat the whole thing, right? Well, you don't, you have full permission to leave
Mhm.
whatever you want on the plate. You can waste, like your body is not a trash can. You do not need to waste food in your body because
It,
that will make you feel worse.
kids are amazing at this, right? Like
Oh,
kids learn this from birth. Like they start with a boob, which like no child is like, I'm going to get to the end. Like, and of course, like some kids obviously don't feed at the breast or at the chest, and that's 100% fine. But the reason that we have low flow nipples and things like that is so that they have more ability to self-regulate, where they're not getting a container that has like X amount. It's like we want them to feel like the food is unlimited. They
yeah.
can have as much as they want and they can stop whenever they want. And this is something, I don't want to go too far off track, but like my husband and I just like sat down a few weeks ago and we were like, we just need to let our kid eat intuitively, because it's gotten to the point that she's like obsessing over the foods that we limit.
Yeah.
Right, we don't want her to eat snack bars all day every day. Like this is our unhealthy food options. Like we
Right.
don't want her to eat snack bars all day. I'm like, who the I'm gonna say a bad word. Who the fuck cares? Like, if my kid wants to eat 4 snack bars, she's gonna be fine. Like, she's gonna be
They're eating.
100% fine.
Yeah.
And we get so, and like, the more we have donuts and cupcakes and cookies and Cheez-Its and crap like that in the house, the less she cares.
Mhm.
And she doesn't she doesn't finish them. She like has some, like kids are amazing at this. For anyone
I
who's
know.
listening who doesn't know, my kid is 2. So like she's still pretty in touch with like that,
Yeah.
like born innate hunger,
Yeah.
satiety. She doesn't eat on a schedule, a-hole. She eats
Right.
whatever
Right.
whatever she wants. She's like
Yeah.
knack,
Snack.
knack.
Snack. I love it. That's so true. And honestly, it's kids are 100% the best intuitive eaters. Like they'll be so excited to get this very large cupcake and they always pick the biggest one, right? Like even though you know they're not going to eat it. And they eat like a couple bites and then they're like, "Okay, I'm good." But they listen to their hunger. So
Mhm.
and that's what we learned, like you and I, or I should say I have learned, it's a learned pattern to think that this food is bad. It's a very learned pattern to say, oh, but I can't have this again. So I might as well eat the whole thing. So I don't have any on Monday when I restart my diet, right? Like
Mhm.
it's a learned pattern. So a lot of this is unlearning. Like kids aren't taught to fear carbs or to fear sugar, right? Like that's something that we teach them. And I don't know about you, but I grew up in a place where not one woman I ever knew loved or liked her body. Like
Mm.
to me, women always had to be in fix it mode. And
Mhm.
that's why I'm like, okay, like clearly my body's not good enough. Even the women I was like, oh my gosh, you're so perfect. They're like, oh, but you should see me naked. And oh, look at this and that. And it's that gal pal fat talk that we like
Mhm.
always go back and forth to each other. We think we're making each other feel better, but it's actually reinforcing the fact that we're not good enough unless we're a certain size.
Totally. So I want to take this to the thing that I think is so fascinating about you and your journey is that like you're strength training still.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell us a little bit, well, first of all, what you're training for right now, and then also how do you reconcile this like training for performance
Mm,
or even still potentially training for appearance, which some of the listeners might be doing,
yeah.
and separating that from self-worth?
So I love this. I actually this took a long time to learn. So I was that person that would go to the gym with the flu
Oh
because
my God.
I can sweat it out. I'm not trying hard enough if I'm not. Like I was that go hard person to the max. Like you can't tell me no. Like I'm gonna do this and I'm hardcore. Like watch how hardcore I am. But when you're training, and this is what my strength coach has told me, like if you're training based off of an insecurity, it will never work for you, which my training was always based on insecurities. And especially in bodybuilding, when everything's about aesthetics, it's literally about how well your muscles come in. Like half of this isn't even trainable. More than half of this is just genetics. Like if you're an endomorph, an ectomorph, a mesomorph, whatever you are, it just depends a lot on your genetics too. And if you want to get to that pro level, you have to take steroids. So it's just like if you want to get to the Olympia stage. So it's a lot of contemplation of how much you want to mess up the inside of your body just for the look of the outside. And
Mm.
it's very scary. So going back to your question, it took a long time. At first, I'm not going to lie, I was still very stuck because I was gaining weight with intuitive eating. So I'm like, okay, I got to work out harder. I can't miss a day. But with intuitive eating, the cool part about it is that it will flow into other aspects of your life. Like you will just naturally become more intuitive with other aspects. So through my fitness, there was one day I remember just being like, I just don't feel like working out today. Like it had been 5 days in a row. And I'm like, I just need a break. And I'm like, all right, maybe I can take it down to like just 5 days a week. You know what I mean? So I did, and it felt weird. Like when you're in drive all the time, going into what I thought was neutral feels like you're giving up on yourself. Going into like a slower state feels like you're like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Like this hurts. It's like, oh. So what I did there was I kind of just started rerouting my workouts a little bit. And then I honestly came to a point to where I got really sick in February, like the whole month. And I pretty much took that whole month off. And it was like the biggest like mountain I climbed. Like it felt so relieved. I felt so relieved, but also very scared at the same time. So I learned my intuitiveness with fitness through failing. I learned through working out too much and being like, okay, that didn't work. And then I worked out not enough and being like, okay, that didn't work. So I like combined things. And that's what people are scared to do. They want, no, just give me the perfect plan. But there is no perfect plan for you. You have to literally figure it out yourself. Like nobody's going to know what works exactly for you, your schedule, until you do it yourself, which is what nobody wants to do. They don't want to go in and fail and try. They just want all the answers right now. And I did too.
Mhm.
So now I am currently training for a strongman competition next August,
Woo!
which is pretty fun. I love training strongman. It's basically lifting very heavy, awkward objects and like running with them. It's so weird. Like you run yokes and you do farmers carries with really heavy weights. So that's really fun right now. So that to me, I had to switch from that aesthetics goal to like a physical goal. So that helped me keep, I'm still a goal setter. Like that's just in my blood. It's in my body. I can't pretend like that's not me. And I tried for a while and it didn't work. So you kind of have to take the good with the bad. And so now I took like what was my perceived flaw, and I turned it into like a superhero power. And I'm just like, okay, so I am a go-getter. I'm a, this person with a goal and I'm going to go achieve it. And so I'm not going to put it towards aesthetics. Now I'm going to put it towards strength. And I have to be careful with that too, because that can still get pretty messy. So I know now I can tell you exactly, Kelly, like I will, if I'm debating a workout, some days I'm like, no, I'm just not doing it. And some days I work out 3 days a week. Last week I worked out 2. This week I'm probably going to work out 5 days this week. Like, but there's no judgment. It's just, Christy, this is what your body needs right now. And I trust it because I've learned so freaking much about my body now through intuitive eating and intuitive fitness that I just know it so well. So that's the cool part. If you can take that 1% of your life, that 1 year to really figure yourself out, you have a lifetime of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's this like part of it also that's you get to use that. I mean, you alluded to that of like when you the intuitiveness like leaks into all of the other areas that it's like once you know your body, like there's so many other things that like when I've started listening to my body more, I'm like, I can tell what my hormones are doing, right?
Yes.
Where I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
oh, I'm not
Yeah.
like, having like in the throes of depression, like the world isn't ending. I'm like, I'm PMSing. Like
Yes.
that literally the awareness of like where I am in my cycle has increased. The awareness of like if I'm getting sick, I can feel that. I can like there's so many other ways that intuitiveness shows up where you're like, oh, I'd love to hear if there's other areas of your life, especially like around parenting and like figuring out how to like live life with little tiny roommates.
I'm going to tell you. So, where my biggest insecurity lies is as a parent. And I know a lot of people feel this way, but like my insecurities I call this the control transfer. Your insecurities will transfer to something else. It's not like they just magically disappear. At first, my control issues from my body, it went into my business.
Mm.
And then now I feel it shifting more towards my parenting, to where that's a big insecurity. So you're always going to fear your biggest insecurities, and have like the most awkward thoughts around them. Like, what if, can I, is this enough? Is this enough is a big one with me. Like, am I doing enough for my kids? Did I play with them enough? Like, this is why I'm really trying to like separate my work time. Like, if I'm with my kids, I'm trying so hard just to be with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I've noticed that I can almost tell, like, before the emotion gets too big, like before this, not enough, I'm not a good enough mom, like, what am I doing? Am I doing enough in business? Did I help this client enough? Did this email go all right? Like, maybe I should have done it this way. All the stupid things you have as like a mompreneur, when you're just like, so
Yep.
much guilt and shame. Like, it's always, I catch the monster before it gets too big. Because Kelly, I don't know if you've noticed this, but as a mom yourself, I feel like we're rewarded for our exhaustion. As a parent, my gosh, dads too, like, we're rewarded. Like, if you look at all the Mother's Day cards, it's always like, look at all that you do for us. You sacrifice this and that. And I'm like, bullshit. Like, I hate this. I don't want to be known as the mom who ran herself like tired, because that's how I remember my mom. My mom did it all. I grew up in a very like traditional Mexican household. My dad was 100% Mexican. My mom is like blonde hair, green eyes, German. So I'm like a mix, and where the woman did everything, but my mom also worked full time. And as like we're getting into this day and age, women are just expected to do more, but have the same mentality as we did back in the 50s, how they grew up. So it's very disheartening to me. And the more I notice it, the more I'm setting up boundaries for this, which it felt weird at first, right? Like, giving myself full permission on all foods, like that felt really weird and awkward at first. But like, when my son needs something now, I'm like, go ask your dad, like, and I don't feel guilty about it. Whereas before, I would feel so guilty being like, oh, but I should be doing it because I should be doing everything, and I need to be doing everything, and I need to be going 100% at all times. So it has definitely helped in my parenting life, because now I set up food boundaries. You're not allowed to talk about the shape of my body. Do not comment on my body. Do not comment on my plate. Do not comment on my parenting, which people will do. So this one I'm still working on, but it's going to be a forever journey. People think that, oh, once I get here, I'll be done with your body shape, with your weight. Once I get here, I'll be happy, da, 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 da. And that's not real, because that means you're perfect, and you will never be perfect, because that perfection bar is always moving. So we need to stop like going for that destination. Well, once I do this with my kids, I'll be the best mom, and da, 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 da. It's a forever learning experience about your body. I'm till the day I die, I will be learning about myself, my body, my hormones. Like you were saying, it's so funny you said that, because I can literally feel like during like ovulation time, things like that. I'm literally like, oh, I'm doing this. Like, the coolest feeling in the world.
And I think, so I have two things I want to say. One is, the reason the perfection bar keeps moving is because we don't celebrate on the way. And so you've taught yourself that you never get to be rewarded. And by rewarded, I mean like the thoughts you think to yourself, not like, oh yeah, you're going to get a cookie if you work out. I mean, like, you give yourself an emotional cookie when you do anything that you intended to do. So like, the perfection bar keeps moving because we're like, we don't know how to be like, I did it.
Right.
That me, like, it was me, I did it, I did the thing I intended to do, and I'm proud of myself. And so we're like, well, okay, so I accomplished that thing I said I wanted to accomplish, but I'm not allowed to be proud of myself. So I must just need to move the bar again. Like, I must just need to keep moving and moving and moving.
Yes.
And the other thing is, like, I don't think I've ever put it together in this exact way until what you were just saying. But I said, my husband and I have been like really trying to assess like how to feed my daughter. And my mom has always said, like, I let you eat whatever you wanted growing up. I have you here because this is not a hang up I have. Like, I eat whatever the fuck I want. Like, and I always have, and I've always been thin. So it's just like, because I don't have the societal pressure of like, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. Like, it's very easy for me to eat intuitively. And so I called my mom and I was like, okay, I know you say you always let me eat whatever I wanted. Run this by me again. Whatever I wanted? Like, how young and how whatever I wanted? And she was like, I think she commuted like an hour and a half. She worked full time. She
Yeah.
was like, I was gone 12 hours a day. You were in daycare. Like, I was like drowning on the weekends. It was all I could do to just like do the laundry and like keep you alive. Like, I let you eat whatever you wanted. And I'm like, I'm sure that the whole time she was sitting there being like, I'm ruining my kids. I'm ruining my kids. I'm a horrible mom. Like, all of that stuff. She's like, I'm not proud of it. To this day, she's like, I'm not proud of it. I'm like, this was such a gift
It was.
to
Oh,
just
it
be
was.
like, this is, she just, that's the one, that's the component of child raising that she didn't obsess over. And it's the thing I have the healthiest relationship with. So what if as parents we go like, school, I'm not going to obsess over it. Friends, I'm not going to obsess over it. Like, their extracurricular activities, their sports, whatever, like the things that we don't micromanage, like if we actually let them take the lead and just do what they want and like get D's when they need to like get C's and D's and have friends who hurt their feelings, like that's like how they become functioning humans who have effective relationships. Obviously, like with some guidance, you're not just gonna be like,
Right.
oh, your
Right.
friend doesn't like you. That sucks.
Right.
Like,
Right.
no parent's gonna do that, but you're gonna be like, yeah, like my best friend and I we're in a COVID pod together. And so our kids play and they're like trying to figure out this whole like taking turns sharing thing.
Yeah.
And like I like really try not to like jump in and like be like, you need to give that back. Like you need to like, and just be like, they're gonna have to sort it out and they're gonna end up crying and we're gonna say like, yeah, it didn't that sucked, didn't it? Like that
Like
was
figure it
hard.
out.
Yeah, this is where we are. Like now what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I think this is like the cognitive dissonance of like the
Yeah.
less you do as a mom,
Yes.
as a parent, the better they are,
Yeah.
the more they learn, the more self-sufficient they become,
Yeah.
and the better their relationships are. And like that is like so hard to believe.
So true. So true. Oh, that's a good one. Absolutely. 100% Kelly. Oh,
All right, so we are going to bring this to a close. What do you want to say? Any like last words of advice? Like, so if we have someone listening who's a parent, new parent, and they're like totally obsessed with like having to lose quote unquote the baby weight,
yeah.
what do we say to them right now?
So my biggest thing to you, and it's kind of like, do you remember when you were in high school and you thought that you had to be like the most popular person, and you like the popular kid like actually grew up and like they're still living with their parents, or which isn't a bad thing. Like if you're obviously there's a lot going on right now in this world pandemic. But you're like, wow, why was I so obsessed with them? Like they have like 12 cats and they're just like, okay, like they're not doing great right now. And you're like flourishing or you're doing whatever you're doing. That's kind of how I view the weight loss now, is that your body shape is the least important thing about you. You have so much more going for you. And I think I work with mainly women, but I do have a few clients, trans clients, I have men clients, things like that. But mostly what I see with women is that they obsess over these smart women, Kelly. I mean, just the smartest women have their own careers. Oh my gosh, this is the hardest part. And their biggest goal is, but I just want to lose 10 pounds. If your weight loss is based off of an insecurity, it will never work. It will never be sustainable. And it will be something that you will be fighting for the rest of your life. So this work is deep. Like that's the one thing that I never realized. Like this is very deep work. So if you're ready to like go into not just the food part, like, cause it's like delayering an onion. Okay, it's not really about the donut. It's not really about my weight. It's not really about how I look. It's about the need to be accepted and loved. So when we can really open that up, is when I think you're ready. So it's a long journey, but it's 100% worth it.
I literally have goosebumps
Ah.
because like this all starts from wanting to be accepted and to be loved. And That shit does not come from like it would be so much fucking easier if we could just train our partner to buy us flowers and then we would feel accepted and loved.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Right.
Doesn't matter what anyone else does for you. It doesn't matter how good your kid is. It doesn't matter what your body looks like. It doesn't matter how many raises and promotions you get. Doesn't matter if you successfully breastfeed and you sleep train and you like do all of the things you're supposed to do as a parent. You're never going to feel accepted and loved unless you do it yourself, which is like some
Exactly.
hard shit.
Especially when we were always taught not to,
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree. It's a whirlwind, but it's once you get that click, you're like, oh yes, like this is powerful. It's powerful.
All right, my dear, tell people how they can find you, how they can work with you. I know you've like alluded to your coaching. Pitch us.
Oh yes. So I do one-on-one coaching. I also do group coaching that only opens up a couple times a year. So you can always join me on Instagram at intuitively_strong, TikTok at intuitively_strong. I'm not to my own horn here. I'm hilarious on TikTok. Like
She's great. She's great on TikTok, guys.
I kind of my goal with this whole thing was to bring light to a very dark subject in a decent way.
Mhm.
So that's what I do there about just diet, nutrition, and things like that. But also I do one-on-one coaching, which is my heart and my soul. My clients are my family. I work with you for 6 months, and I chose 6 months because even then I have some clients that go even further with me. Like I said, it took me a year and a half to get to this place, but I have some clients that are graduating right now that are like, I'm so good. Like literally they're like whole 180 right here, just able to keep foods in the house, just neutral at a very neutral and loving state with their bodies. It's beautiful. So yeah, find me. You can email me. If you DM me on Instagram, I always reply back, like always. I want to create a solid community there, and that's what we're doing. So
Yeah, Christi's amazing. Thank you, Christi, so much for being here. This has just been the best.
I'm
You're the
honored to be
best.
on your podcast, Kelly. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you.